What's going on, everyone? My name is Joseph Reynolds at Lowkick MMA, and today joining me is the gentleman himself. After a great performance in his last bout, he's not just featuring on the card of LFA, this time he's main eventing it against Trey Walters, another good fighter. But ahead of such a great fight, a main event, getting that momentum back, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling outstanding. I was desperate to erase that last loss, just really get on past that. That's why I was hunting for a fight for so long and kept getting turned down. Thankfully, Scott took it, and we were able to, make that loss a memory of the past.
Yeah, and the fighter that you bounced back against, it wasn't some layover. They were another great prospects in the division like yourself. And now this opponent as well is highly regarded. A really great matchup. But to get this opponent and to be the main event, what's that sort of like to get that such a quick turnaround and get there?
But I love a quick turnaround, and I love when I'm able to get an opponent who, like you said, he's well scouted. He just came off the Contender Series, losing to Gabriel Bonfim. So I'm loving that I'm able to not only get this matchup against a high-level guy, make it the main event, and also, get right back to it 3 months away from my last fight. It's all perfect for me.
Yeah, and you mentioned now, obviously, he's coming off of the Contender Series. And with a win there, it's kind of hard to deny that if he got his shot on there, that you probably deserve it as well with a win. Is that something that's come to mind, knowing that you might be a win, 2 wins away from getting to that opportunity or a title shot in the LFA? Or is the focus at the moment just on this fight?
The focus has got to be just on this fight. I've messed up before, back when I was undefeated, thinking, I'm one more away, I get this win. And I didn't look past the guy, but my thoughts weren't completely focused on him. It was, okay, I got to think about next steps too. And that's a lot of mistakes fighters make when they're younger. And now that I'm a little bit older, 30 years of age right now, I'm like, nah, man, you got to focus on who's in front of you, make the most of the fight that you have in front of you. Because if it doesn't go your way, everything else shatters around you.
Yeah, and everyone likes to sort of mention the fighters being in the prime once they get to a certain age, but obviously you're showing that still early in pro career, somewhat you're making these big improvements, you're able to improve, and obviously coming straight out of your last fight, pretty much into another fight almost straight away. Do you feel as though this is sort of the best way as a fighter to get the improvements, pretty much not really having time to lay off, knowing that you're going from one fight straight into another?
100%. Activity is key. Activity is key for younger fighters coming up. They should be doing all the smokers, kickboxing matches, grappling matches, anything they can to get that experience, get that fight time, because nothing helps you improve more than being in the actual fight. You can spar for years and you'll get more out of one 10-minute fight than you would have out of that year and a half of training.
Yeah, and being a main event, obviously, the main benefit, I'm sure, is obviously the headline in the card, and being able to be on a bigger platform. But in terms of being able to be the main event, what sort of other benefits come alongside that when you are headlining a card?
When you have the main benefit, I would say, other than, of course, the additional eyes that come on you, you get that main event feeling. If you're planning on going far in this fight, you have to become going far in the fight game. You have to become accustomed to being able to sit in the back with that anxiety, knowing that you're closing out the show. Like, you have to sit back there, maintain your focus, maintain your composure, make sure that you're doing your proper warm up. Don't let the fact that you are main event now deter you from what your norm is. You just have to become a little bit more accustomed to the nerves that come along with it.
Yeah, and then in terms of sort of looking at this fight and how it came around, what was the sort of, was this something that you knew was going to happen with a win here, or was this bout that you've recently just been offered something that just came out of nowhere a little bit?
This one just came out of nowhere because I was asking for a title shot. That's what I was asking for. They gave me this instead with a main event slot next to it, and I said that's okay with me.
Yeah, and sort of knowing in terms of being able to get into this fight and looking at your opponent, as mentioned, headlining the card, you mentioned in terms of the different feelings, does it feel a little bit different in terms of preparing for this fight, knowing where you are on the card?
100%. There's a different feel to it. It's the best way to describe it for me personally. When you're the main event and you're in training camp, there's a bit of a swagger that comes along with it, with being in that position. you always train the hardest. I'm not the guy who says, oh, this is because I have this fight, I'm going to train even harder. No, I train as hard as I can every single day whenever I'm able to. I'm always going to push that max effort. But it's for me, it's that yeah, I'm the main event feel, like that little hall walk where they're following you with the camera into the venue. Like that's the type of stuff that I think it really shines in the main event spot.
Yeah, and then obviously your last fight, as you mentioned, you bounced back from that defeat and then moving into this one as well. Does it almost feel a little bit like a little bit of a comeback story in a sense? Obviously, to come from a loss, your mentality seemed really great, even going into your last fight, and then now I'm sure it might even feel even better. But in terms of having such a strong mentality, win or lose, do you feel as though that's been a big aid in terms of getting back on track and being able to start building that momentum again?
100%. Fighters live and die in their head. We've heard it so many times before. You have to have that unshakable confidence in yourself, win or lose, but you have to be very careful not to be delusional with it, because if you are, then you won't be able to grow the way you need to grow. So for me, it's always been win or lose. I'm going to take the positive from the loss. I'm going to take the negative from the wins, because anything that positive from the loss in regards to that, I'm not talking about positive things I did. I'm talking about things that I can do to grow, things that my opponent showed me I need to work on. I'll take that as a positive. Things that I take as a negative in my victories are anything that went slightly off plan. Like me getting touched at all is something that I will obsess over. Like my last opponent, he kicked me in the leg twice, and I have dedicated myself to figuring out how come I wasn't able to check those kicks when I was at a distance to see it coming. So those are the things that I really have to keep. It keeps me in the right mindset going into a fight.
Yeah, and now taking a look at your opponent and sort of what he brings to the table for this fight, how do you sort of see this playing out when you are in the cage, and how do you see this fight going?
The way I mainly see this fight going is he loves his pull counter. His pull counter right hand. He's 6'4" to 6'5". We get different measurements depending on where he's fighting out of, but he loves to box. He has a nasty switch leg high kick, but he stands and leans over like a traditional boxer would. So I feel like we're going to be clashing mainly in the middle. That's what I'm trying to get him. I want to meet him in the middle and back him up slowly but surely, but not overextend myself to where I miss big, he pull counters me. It's going to be another southpaw versus orthodox matchup for me, so that kind of makes his pull counter a little bit more difficult to pull off. He can't just pull on my jab and immediately rip it when we're southpaw versus orthodox. So I'm planning on backing him up against that cage, beating up that body. I'm not going to try to headhunt 6'5", flowy kind of a guy. I'm not going to really immediately start there. I'm going to work my way up from his legs to his body, put him away at his head, and I'm planning on getting him out of there in the second round.
Yeah, and I believe the last time that we spoke for your last fight, he was able to sort of call it exactly how that fight would go, and then I'm sure here it'll be accurate when you get into that. But do you feel as though throughout your pro career, you've been able to sort of read your opponents quite well before the fights, and when things don't sort of go how you see them, how is that sort of to adapt to right in the cage?
I am definitely the guy who gains more confidence the longer I have to study an opponent. So my two losses came on 11 and 8 day or 9 days notice. I took those fights against Bruno and Mutabek, and that was the biggest thing. Whenever they would make those in cage adjustments or they come out fighting me in a different style, it did take me a long time to try to figure out what is going on. This does not match anything that I've seen so far, but it's because I didn't have the time to study my opponents. So for me, I would say going into this one or any fight really, study time is key for me, because no matter what adjustments they try to make, I'll have their blueprint completely figured out and paced down.
Yeah, and then just a final thing for myself. Obviously, missed the main event, the gentleman himself. Going to be looking in there. And as you mentioned, second round statement, I'm sure it's going to be on its way. But for the fans that still are yet to hear the name Jalin Fuller, what is it that they can expect to see from you come fight night?
It's got to be clashing. I am looking to give you guys a fight the entire time. I'm not going to wait I don't plan on getting hit. I am a guy who wants to go in there and hammer out as many nails as possible and show you guys I'm on a different level than my contemporaries. So prepare to see massive left hands, massive left kicks, massive spins, body work like you probably haven't seen from me before in this fight.
Well, there you go. That is everything from myself. As mentioned many a time, is the main event. You don't want to miss it. It'll be on the UFC Fight Pass. Be there or be square. But appreciate your time. If you'd like the chance to shout any sponsors, anything like that, obviously just feel free to go ahead, buddy.
It's got to be my team at Duke City MMA, Rough Rider Barbell Club, keeping me in the best shape of my life. El Chino Meals, my meal prep sponsor. They've changed the way I approach weight cutting and getting down to weight. There's no cut anymore. It's just a diet, and I can just have to stay committed with great food all the way through. Other than that, that's all I really need to shout out. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it so much.
It's an absolute pleasure, as always, to be joined by yourself. Appreciate your time very much as well, buddy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Make sure to subscribe to the Lowkick MMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.